Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for another Q&A. And one of the things people keep asking is like, hey, what's up with this gym footage? It seems to be reusing and remixing your old footage. Yeah, of course it is, guys. I do this instead of doing this podcast style. A lot of people just throw a background photo up when they do podcast type videos, and I instead give you guys actual workout footage to watch. Recorded 62 workouts this last year, and I had those as stock footage to remix in a variety of combinations for things I want to voice over when I'm not sitting in front of the camera directly, like I do about once or twice a day at the most between my couple of channels. So let's go ahead and get to that first question though. As you have pointed out in the past, you shouldn't ever change a program from a more experienced individual. I do not plan to change your program. In your novice program, you only allow individuals to do one set of deadlifts every other training session. What would be the negative side effect of doing that every training session? I'm just curious about how adding one additional set to a program, even with deadlifts, could be harmful. Alright, the answer to this is pretty simple. Deadlifts are one of the most difficult exercises to recover from. Now, maybe above the knee rack pulls might be harder. But barring something like that, as far as conventional exercises go, deadlifts are probably the single most taxing exercise you can do. Doing any sort of high frequency or high volume deadlifting can take an enormous toll on your recovery, and it has to be programmed very, very carefully. One of the biggest complaints with my novice 5x5, and it is a valid complaint, is that for some people, the workload and volume of the program is too much to recover from. This program is written for a fairly narrow demographic. This is where, like I'm going to talk about some starting strength guys in a minute. Starting strength works for everybody. Starting strength works for everybody because it's written to be useful to a broad number of demographics of people. My novice program is intended only for healthy, intact young men who are willing to eat a lot of food. All right, that's it. No one else should be running that program. It will bury you. And there have been people who tried to modify it and add things who got buried. And some people complain that even as it's written, a few people say it's just too much. They start to actually experience overtraining symptoms. So when you look at it from that perspective, you have a program that a certain percentage of the population can't recover from as it is. So if you start adding more sets and volume and days of the single hardest exercise to recover from to a program like that, you're going to create a lot of problems for yourself. And that's just the way that you need to look at it. Again, when you start deadlifting with any sort of appreciable volume or frequency, you have to program very, very carefully because it is an exercise that will bury you if you're not careful. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. If you had to recommend one active strength/fitness coach, who would it be? Thanks. As far as active goes, I'm going to assume you mean easy to access in the online community that they do long distance coaching and everything. If I had to recommend to narrow it down to the better coaches for just overall strength and conditioning who are out there, I'm going to have a couple different recommendations. Obviously, like I've said before, if you're going to do any sort of hybrid athlete training because you want to compete in a couple different endeavors, I would look into people like Alex Viada. And if Alex is too busy, he's got several coaches on his team over at Complete Human Performance. I think Alex is a very smart guy, and I think he's very, very good at what he does, and so is his team in dealing with hybrid athletes. I would look into them. Some other people who I think are good coaches, and it's interesting because they're in some cases at odds, is going to be the Juggernaut training system guys like Chad Wesley Smith and some of the starting strength coaches out there, and I'm going to name a couple who I like. But as far as that goes, yeah, even though Chad Wesley Smith got really mad at me or whatever and had some negative words to say a few years ago, because I guess he doesn't like my call out of fake natties and all that. I don't know. I don't get it. But that's besides the point. As far as him being a good coach, the guy's a good coach, and if you wanted to hire a coach, I'd recommend it. Now, some people are going to go, why are you recommending these other people? Well, because I don't offer coaching services. I'm not really interested in coaching right now. Maybe one day. It's not something I'm really interested in at the moment, and so I'm more than happy to direct people to these people who actually do coach for a living and are good at it, and I think have the bona fides and are good coaches of who I know of who are out there. But yeah, Chad Wesley Smith, absolutely, I'd recommend him. And then a couple of the starting strength guys who I like, Jordan Feigenbaum and Austin Baraki over with Barbell Medicine. And again, they're starting strength coaches. They have their barbell medicine gig. They're medical doctors. They're both very strong, very smart guys. I like a lot of what they have to say, so I don't think you could go wrong with hiring those guys as coaches either if that's something you're interested in. I would definitely endorse everyone on that list. Alex Viata, most of his team, Chad Wesley Smith, the barbell medicine guys, definitely are people that I think I could recommend without feeling like I'd be giving you guys bad recommendations. So I'd look into those guys if you're trying to hire a strength and conditioning coach, kind of depending upon what it is you're trying to do with your training and what direction you're going. Maybe someone like Chad Wesley Smith if you're trying to compete at a very, very high level in strength sports, general strength and conditioning, or at least just to compete at certain regional levels, maybe even the national level, and something like powerlifting. The barbell medicine guys wouldn't be bad choices. Again, probably have a little bit more of a holistic approach with them. And then anyone who's wanting to be a hybrid athlete competing in a couple different endeavors, Alex Viata and his team over at Complete Human Performance. I feel comfortable backing any of those guys. All right, next question. Jason, speak about gains after 5 years plus of training. Your recent videos have really demoralized my future goals. I just don't see how it's possible to gain strength and not put on mass after a certain time frame of training. Are you saying no matter how the program and diet is executed, gains are not even noticeable? It really does beg the question of staying natty, busting out years of hard work for peanuts. I hope you can answer. Thanks, coach. Well, at a certain point, you have to accept the fact that you're going to have to overeat to gain muscle and strength. You may even have to gain a little body fat. And yeah, it's going to go very, very slow. That's the reality of advanced training. That's the reality of it. There's a reason massive guys are massive. It's because they use drugs. You're going to have a finite amount of muscle that you're going to gain. And what I mean by finite, I don't mean you stop growing. It's just that you're going to have diminished returns each year. In other words, you're going to gain less each year than you gained the year before. And that's simply unavoidable. You just have to accept that reality. And what I would tell people, that doesn't mean you don't keep training. It doesn't mean you don't keep moving forward. It's that you need to accept that you have gleaned most of the fruits of your labor already. I mean, if you've been training hard for 5 years and training smart, yeah, you have gained the vast overwhelming majority of the gains. And you should be proud of yourself if that's what you've done. Now, if you've played around and you have a lot of gains left in the tank, it's because you've played around and haven't followed proper programming. But yeah, at a certain threshold to make noticeable gains, it's going to take a lot more nutrition care, a lot more care in your training, your programming. And yeah, you're going to gain a lot less out of the coming year, even if you do everything perfect than a couple years before. But you know what? Quit whining about it. I mean, what is your other option? I just recommended a couple of guys, and I'm going to steal one of their lines from one of those coaches. What's the other option? Not train? What are you going to do? Not train? That's your other option. Or you can cash in your natty card. But at the end of the day, it's not my place to tell you to stay natty or not. You need to figure that out on your own. You need to do your own risk analysis and figure out for yourself what you want to do there. But I will tell you, if you've been training 5+ years, you're going to see very, very, very slow gains from this point forward. You are. That's reality. That's the real world. That's what you're going to deal with if you had chosen to stay natty. And here's the thing. Had no one ever used anabolics, you wouldn't be asking this question because you wouldn't care, because there wouldn't be anyone out there who's massive. You wouldn't see anyone who's lean and massive anywhere in the world to even have a comparison to if it wasn't for that. So you also need that perspective also. And you need to ask yourself, are you looking at this for your own personal reasons, meaning when you're this demoralized, or are you comparing yourself to other people who've made a different choice in life? If you decide that anabolics are not for you and you think it's evil and wrong and whatever, that would be like saying, man, I feel bad about this job I have where I only make $100,000 a year when Pablo Noriega made millions and millions of dollars selling lots of cocaine. You can't take that perspective. You either need to decide if you think taking gear is right or wrong, if it's worth it for you or not, and live with that choice. And again, don't compare yourself to other people if you can't live with the comparison. All right, next question. Will SARMs spell the end of supplement companies? They could if laws were changed, but they're not going to, and here's the reason. Because SARMs are not allowed to be sold for human use, they're always going to be research chemicals. They're not going to be able to market them on the level that supplement companies market stuff. No, they're not going to be the end of it, even though SARMs do what supplement companies try to do, actually produce products that work. No, it's not going to happen. And the reality is, if the laws get changed to allow SARMs completely, then supplement companies are probably going to do the smart thing and just start selling SARMs. Because what it comes down to is that people say, well, what about risk? Well, supplement companies are allowed to sell you stuff that's risky anyways. There's no proof that half the supplements you take aren't going to give you cancer. They aren't tested and evaluated before they're sold. The law doesn't require them to. The only thing that is going to be the death of the supplement industry would be if laws get changed and the supplement industry gets regulated the way similar industries are. If they come in and tell the supplement companies, you have to follow the same rules that all food manufacturers and drug manufacturers follow, that would be the death of the supplement industry. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to shut it down. Because at this point their marketing hype is so good and people are so stupid and naive that they're just going to keep buying the crap. And so unless there's something else that steps in and changes that, I don't see the supplement industry going away anytime soon. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.